Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And this is going to be another Patreon selected video, a Patreon voted on video about my top 10 cooperative games. And that's going to be, well, not surprisingly, my top 10 cooperative games. Now, when putting together this list, I love a lot of games, really. I'm a bit of a omni gamer, I think the term is. I like everything. I like things from heavy Euros to cooperatives to party to dungeon crawlers to hybrids to any number of different styles of games. And I have a whole series of videos planned about why I like those certain things, what captures me, what brings me in, and all that kind of thing. But that's not this video. This video is literally my top 10 cooperative games. And the way I tried to put together this video to a degree, not perfectly, is picking different elements of cooperative games that add something to my table, that give me a different feel, but ultimately at the same time fall into my top 10 cooperative games. And I think I did a pretty decent job. I cheated as usual, trying to get more than 10 in there because I love games too much to condense a list down to just 10. And I do have to cut some things, but there are other things that I sneak in just so I can, well, have more than 10 games. But we're going to start off with the big one on the table, primarily because if you've watched my videos, my top 10 lists, I like to pull things in from off camera. And, well, this bad boy is not something that lovingly pulls itself in from off camera. This one needs to start on camera lest I damage myself or have to start the video again because of some horrible accident. But this is going to be Mechs vs. Minions. Mechs vs. Minions is going to be a game from Riot Games. This is a League of Legends inspired game, although it has nothing to do with the actual computer game past the theme itself. So if you like League of Legends, this may or may not be a game for you. And if you didn't like League of Legends, don't let that turn you away from this game, because I don't think anyone has to care what League of Legends is at all to love this game. This game in Mechs and Minions, what you are doing effectively, this is action programming. It's a cooperative action programming game in which you are basically controlling your mechs as you stomp across all the minions on the board. And the game is going to present challenges, puzzles that you have to achieve before you run out of time, because the minions themselves rarely present enough of a threat to truly take you out of the game. Rather, they inhibit you. They slowly damage your mech, making it harder and harder to actually achieve your goals. But the fun of this game comes in that cooperative action programming. So if you ever played Robo Rally, which has action programming, it has laying out your cards in a certain row, trying to predict, well, if I move forward here, then turn here, and what happens if this person moves here and he pushes my bot? It provides a degree of planning that is satisfying and a degree of chaos and inability to plan that is, well, hilarious and also satisfying. The problem is that when you do that in a competitive game, as much fun as it can be, it can also be frustrating. You can also run into times where you're like, I know it's just fun and I know it's just crazy, but it kind of feels like your mech just reliably does its planning and my mech keeps getting blocked by other people, and so it's hard and it can be frustrating. But you take that same formula and you apply it to, first of all, an amazingly produced game. One of the most amazingly produced games for an amazing price point that you will ever find, especially considering a retail model. Number two, you make it cooperative. You remove that me versus you element in a game that's really just about the craziness of having fun while planning and having those plans fall apart or succeed either way. And then three, add more powers and abilities to those cards, so it's not just pure movement, but it's powers and abilities. I will do a flame spout 3 in front of me. I will spike all the things to my 4 diagonals, taking out all the minions in a way. There's all these different cards that will interplay in different ways, making it fun. I'm gonna skewer different minions, which will not only take them out, but also provide a level of defense for the next time I take damage. Powers and abilities, cooperative and action programming, complete madness. All makes Mechs and Minions, well, one of my favorite cooperative games. From there, I'm going to do my first attempt at, well, bringing in a bunch of cheating. I'm going to bring 4 games to the table, 3 of which that I have in front of me. The other one I can't find on my shelf, and I'm trying to figure out who I lent it out to and who I have to hunt down. And those 4 games are going to be because they all fall into this similar category. And they're going to have a degree of, one of them will have a degree of similarity to Mechs and Minions. And those 3 are going, 4 games, are going to be The Mind, The Crew, Quirky Circuits, and Magic Maze. And the reason I'm picking all those games is because they all have one thing in common. And if you've played these games, if you've played 2 or even 3 of these games, you know what I'm about to say. And that is, the communication in these games is going to be stilted. The communication in these games is limited in what you can do. In The Mind, you can't talk at all. You have to play your cards slowly but surely, one at a time, in ascending order, hoping that you can communicate, that you can be on the same wavelength as to the fact that just because you're holding a 60 in your hand and I'm holding a 20, who goes first? Sure, I can play my card, but you might have a 17, and if we have to play them in ascending order, that's going to be hard, and you have to try to get in each other's minds, get in each other's grooves and rhythms and flows and figure it out until you can play your cards in ascending order, mission after mission after mission, until you, well, win or lose. And I love that team player aspect combined with the lack of being able to talk. It is communication or lack of communication at its finest. And Quirky Circuits is very much going to have that same thing, but combined with that action programming madness of Mechs versus Minions. You're going to be trying to control little robots around the board, combining Robo Rally or Mechs and Minions style gameplay with the inability to communicate of the mind. You have to get in each other's heads. You have a straight, I have a left. You're going to move forward, backwards, reverse, whatever it is. What is the optimal move if we can't talk to each other about what the optimal move is? And this game is absolutely hilarious to play. It's absolutely amazing when you sit there and you get in each other's minds, and then you have one player at the table who, for some reason, thought that going left and then down and right was the most efficient way to move, and suddenly hilarity ensues. And again, it is cooperative hilarity. Cooperative hilarity. You win or lose together. You mess up together. You work as a team or fail as a team. It is fun. If you want something that, well, if you want to see if Mechs vs. Minions is for you and you want it at a cheaper price point, check out Quirky Circuits. It's going to be different in many ways, similar in others. I will say Mechs and Minions does have live communication. You can talk to each other, granted with a timer. So if you don't like that lack of being able to talk, well, don't let that put you off from Mechs and Minions. And then from there we have the crew. The crew is going to be, yes, talking to a degree. You can communicate about certain things. This is going to be a trick-taking cooperative game, which is an interesting combination, and I hate trick-taking games, by the way. I've never found a trick-taking game that I found enjoyable, and yet I love the crew, and I don't know what that says about trick-taking or the crew, but the crew has that same aspect of you have a shared common goal, and you have to figure out how to do that with limited ability to communicate about what your plans are, about what you will do. And then finally, Magic Maze is going to be a timer where you also can't talk to each other while you try to desperately get out of this mall that you just burgled together. And it's a fantasy theming, burgle, whatnot. It's a little, it's a little whimsical theme. It's not too intense or too dark or whatnot. But you have to figure out how to get out together and rapidly moving, and each player will get delegated actions. So you might have the ability to go left or right. I may have the ability to go down and up escalators, and we have to take our turns one at a time, understanding that when I move forward, I want you to move left, but I can't say so. The most I can do is put a little action token in front of you and be like, it's your turn to go. But all 3 or 4 of these games are going to have in common the idea of limited communication, so you have to kind of figure out how you're going to act as a team, how you're going to get on the same wavelength together, or, like I said, fall apart trying. Next up from there is one you've probably seen a lot of me talking about, and this is going to be Codenames Duet. This and one other game, in fact, were both on a family-friendly list, or games I play with my wife and family list that I put on recently. But Codenames Duet is definitely, if I had to pick one couples cooperative game, specifically couples, I mean, 2 players can play it as well. I've played with my friends, but it's good with friends, it's good with couples. I'm just going on. In any case, this is going to be my favorite version of Codenames. If I had to get rid of Codenames or Codenames Duet, I would get rid of Codenames, and it's not even close. And that's because, well, really accessibility. I find I get Codenames Duet to the table far more often. This is a game that I love pulling out when I have 10, 15 minutes, or when I just want to spend an hour and a half doing this again and again and again at the table, laying out those cards in Codenames. If you haven't played Codenames, you lay out the cards, you give the clues back and forth, you're on the same team, and you have limited number of turns to try to figure out how to actually guess each other's clues. I love Codenames as a concept. I think it is one of the best party games out there. I think it does an excellent job of combining the hobby that we love and the, well, party games of the general world. This is one of my favorite gateway games, in my opinion. It's one of the games I love seeing on game shelves left, right, and center in popular stores and whatnot. I think Codenames is an excellent addition to our hobby in, well, any number of different ways, and Codenames Duet is definitely one of my favorite cooperative games, not even close. Next up, let's skip this one. I want to go a bit out of order from my other list. We're going to do Pandemic Legacy, and this is specifically going to be Pandemic Legacy, not specifically Season 2. In fact, my preference is actually Season 1, but I don't currently have that box on my shelf. I've since gotten rid of that one twice. I've played Season 1 twice, I've played Season 2 twice, I've played Season 0 times, which is appropriate, I think, because, well, it's Season 0. But Pandemic as a game is one that I heavily recommend in general. I do. I think Pandemic, in general, I still have it on my shelf, which is rare. It's one of a handful of games left from my original games that I still have on my shelf. An idea for another video, perhaps. But Pandemic Legacy specifically takes all the things I love about Pandemic as a game. And if you don't know, Pandemic basically is a cooperative game, well, I mean, obviously, in which you are trying to stop the flow of diseases from spreading around the globe, taking you out. You have to take your actions, taking turns, figure out the flow, move around the board, remove a disease, build up cards, cure diseases, all these things together until you win or lose as a team. It is a solid concept, and it is thematically well done in the sense that diseases tend to populate where diseases already occurred. So it's thematically sound, and it's, it was more abstract until COVID-19 took over the world, and now we actually all understand what an actual pandemic is. But that being said, Pandemic Legacy takes a solid game system and makes it infinitely better. I mean, I don't know how many times I've played Pandemic, but between two versions of Season, I played, it just gives you roughly 18 to 20 games per play. It's between 12 and 24, depending on how often you win or lose. And I've played this now 4 times. Well, Season 2 twice, Season 1 twice. So that's going to be somewhere in the range of 70 or so games that I have played of Pandemic Legacy. Far more than possibly any single other game that I have in my collection. And that's because it gives me the core simplicity of Pandemic combined with a story that's going to drag out over multiple scenarios, or going to drag out over those 18 to 20 missions or whatever it is, slowly but surely teasing out narrative elements and character building and character depth and all these aspects together that just make Pandemic better. Granted, it's a legacy game, so eventually you will run out of games to play, but like I said, 70 games of Pandemic Legacy under my belt, this is not a game that is limited shelf life. From there, I'm going to move on to Machina Arcana. And this is going to be, this is going to be the newest addition to this list. And it wouldn't have been before, but this game it's so accessible. Machina Arcana, let's see if we can do a little bit of a box backing, although it's not that descriptive on the back. Machina Arcana is going to be one of my more recent additions, like I just said. It is a game that is a dungeon crawler, and while not my favorite dungeon crawler, if I had to pick out which dungeon crawlers I like more, there would be a few well above this. But in terms of the combination of accessibility to depth that Machina Arcana gives me, well, that's why it's on this list. Because this is a game that I can break out to the table in maybe 6-7 minutes of setup and whatnot, start moving, and then play it either solo or together with my wife or whoever, and get this done in maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I'm done. Then I can come back if I want. I can play a different scenario. There's no chaining campaigns that keep me invested. There's no infinite setup. There's no heavy complexity. There's enough rules and complexity to keep you invested in the strategy of the game as you move around the board, navigating those traps. I have a full review on it. You can check it out, where you have to figure out the way to move and balance your choices in the game of how to utilize your stamina, of how to take out the monsters. It is not a direct conflict game. It is a strategic game in which knowing when to run, how far to run, when to keep running, and when to eventually stop, turn, and fight. Those things are key in this game. And for me, the reason it makes this list over many other cooperative dungeon crawling games that provide possibly a better experience, a better experience, is because this one is accessible. This one hits the table. This one, I am very much looking forward to the new expansions and the updated rule sets and all that stuff, but it is a solid dungeon crawler game that and when I say dungeon crawler, I know the creator does not like to call it dungeon crawler, but for me, it will still be in my dungeon crawler collection. But Machina Arcana is an excellent game that is, one that I recommend checking out. Next up from there, in an equally totally serious style of gameplay, we have Trogdor the Burninator. Trogdor! That's because the last time I brought this game to the table, someone said, "How dare you say Trogdor without saying Trogdor? Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants. Trogdor!" I don't know why I do these things. These things can become audio clips and be shared on the internet, where my family eventually finds them and then shares them to our family WhatsApp chats, which is now inviting them to do just that, I realize, reluctantly. I should really start getting into editing videos. In any case, Trogdor the Burninator is definitely one that I felt I had to bring to the table, because if I had to pick a family-friendly cooperative game that is simultaneously family-friendly, simultaneously gateway-friendly, simultaneously just playing with your spouse or whoever friendly, Trogdor the Burninator has a simple yet accessible appeal that makes it on this list. I have This game is a complete surprise to me. I did not back this game. I did not do any... I got the game because eventually it was one that I was like, I have to trade for Trogdor. It's Trogdor. I probably will play it once, move on from it, don't care about it at all. And yet it is whimsical. It is fun. You burninate the countryside. If you get the deluxe editions, you have these adorable miniatures with this little fire cone of a hat that it runs around, burninating things when you set it on fire, and then you have to try to balance Trogdor staying alive, not getting attacked by the archers and the peasants and the... not the peasants, the archers and the knights, as the peasants try to slowly but surely repair the land that you are burninating. And it is your job, it is your diligent duty, it is your obligation. There's many other words for obligation I could try to come up with, but it is your responsibility, your sacred responsibility to burninate everything in sight. Because that's what you want to do. Trogdor is whimsical, it is adorable, it is easy to teach, easy to play, an excellent, fun, family weight game, as long as you don't mind the concepts of teaching your children how to burninate everything in sight, which has its own possible moral compass or fire hazard associated with it. In any case, moving on from Trogdor, we have, let's see what we grab here. Let's grab one from beneath the table over here, where we have Spirit Island, and this is one where I'm reluctant to pick up the box too much because everything is in here on a tilt, and so this is one of the, some of my games I have to store flat on the shelf, some of them I store, sideways or whatever it is, like this. I can hear things tilting. But this one's going to stay at this angle because I don't want to mess with it too much. Spirit Island is a game that made its way into my top 10 solo games, and it well deserves its place in my top 10 cooperative games as well, because this game is awesome. It is so much fun to play. In this game, you are the spirits of the island, rejecting the horrible invaders who are coming to your island, colonizing it as if it's their own, and just not caring about the various natives on the land and whatnot. So that they're slowly invading, they're trying to build up cities, and you, as the spirits protecting this place, are slowly but surely tearing down those cities until you can invoke enough fear in the invading armies that they eventually run away and you win the game. And there are a few ways you can win, fear being one of them, complete elimination being another one, and it's a balance, and it goes over multiple rounds until you eventually achieve that state. And it's hard, and it's puzzly, and what I love about this game so much is powers and abilities. Each spirit comes to the table with their own power, their own unique skill set that is going to allow them to try to, strike fear into the hearts of... I'm realizing there's a theme here of some of these games are, we have burninating the countryside, we have striking fear into the hearts of people. It is what it is. In any case, from there, from your starting deck and your starting power, you're going to slowly but surely draw more powers to augment your playstyle and to build up a combination of things that allow you to completely and totally eliminate and or terrify the various the various invaders of this land. I love Spirit Island. I love the puzzle it presents. And something I haven't really talked about here yet is the concept of quarterbacking. Quarterbacking in cooperative games is a general idea that one dominant player will try to control how the game plays out. Now, some of quarterbacking in general some of quarterbacking can be prevented by the players themselves. Understand what quarterbacking is, try to minimize it, know the difference between offering tips and telling people what to do or forcing your opinion too heavily. But some games do a better job of eliminating quarterbacking almost in and of themselves. And first of all, the mind, the crew, Magic Maze, Quirky Circuits will do all that because of their inability to communicate properly. You can't have someone telling you what to do when they don't even know what's in your hand. Mechs vs. Minions will do that same thing because of the timer and the rushing to try to get things done, so there will be a lack of quarterbacking here as well. Trogdor is definitely vulnerable to quarterbacking, but if you really feel the need to quarterback exactly where the countryside gets burninated, then you might have a bigger problem on your hands. Pandemic Legacy is going to have some degree of quarterbacking, viable in it. You have to trust the players, but there can certainly be some degree of quarterbacking. Spirit Island is so intensely complex in the way the game plays out that good luck quarterbacking. I can barely manage what my spirit's doing, and the most I can do is tell you, well, why don't you touch upon this area of the island, and I'll touch upon this area, and hopefully we'll repel them all. Well, we got this down. You can't quarterback because it's too complex to quarterback. And a 2-player game would be hard, and a 3-player game, good luck with that. Playing this thing solo, 6-handed or whatever it is. I mean, people do it, but I can't imagine the struggle of it. So, overall, an amazing game, and a game that is complex enough to try to minimize the problem that quarterbacking is. And for Machina Arcana, I guess you could quarterback. I don't know. I play this as a 2-player dungeon crawler, and we just have fun. But I guess someone could quarterback in that one. Next up from there, we're going to have Arena the Contest. Arena the Contest is going to be one that this is a giant, this is a few things. To begin with, it's a 2-player, or more than 2-player, it's a team-based head-to-head game in which you're going to be attacking each other with teams of heroes. Let's see if we can get a back-of-the-box situation here. And this one is going to be one that it is originally designed as more of a 1 to 8 player, combat, attacking each other, whatnot. But then what really took off as the game hit people's shelves is the cooperative mode of the game, in which both in a single shot adventure or in a drawn out longer campaign mode, you could basically create your heroes, create your crew, and then I don't remember how many heroes it was. I think it's 4 heroes. 4 heroes will journey together and try to take on the board, take on the monsters, and work together, casting your fireballs, pushing someone into a lava pit, healing someone desperately, all these fun and good stuff in Arena of the Contest, a game that I absolutely adore. The cooperative mode on this game is what sells me. It is so much fun to have your team of heroes, whether it's you're playing a 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, whatever you're doing, although I guess 2 and 4 is probably better because the number of heroes. In any case, you craft your heroes, you put together your teams, then you move around the board slowly but surely accomplishing your objectives. I love the powers and abilities. You may notice a trend here. I love the powers and abilities of this game, of Arena of the Contest, and the way you get to do different things and the way you can pick different heroes, and it totally mixes up everything. I am looking forward to Arena of the Contest Tenera's Adventures, in which is going to be even more of a campaign going on, even though I'm getting kind of tired of campaigns, but single shot or campaign, more heroes, more dragons, more epic encounters. I think Arena of the Contest is one of my favorite dungeon crawlers, cooperative dungeon crawlers. I'm not entirely sure which category this falls into. It is a little bit less accessible than Machina Arcana, but it is surprisingly accessible. They have like a 70-page rulebook or something. I don't know if it's 70 pages. They have a lengthy rulebook that they have a compressed 6-page manual that really gives you enough to get started. You'll have to reference the rulebook for things, but you can really get started out the gate. I haven't played this game in actually a while, and I'm pretty sure I can just pull it out and just start moving. You might miss a few rules that don't really matter, like how different interlocking movements work and running away from someone, whether you get striked, but you'll have fun. Whether you make every single rule or whether you get every single rule correctly or not, you will have fun and you'll be able to play it, and that matters far more than the impactfulness of, well, you missed this little rule in a cooperative game. I highly recommend Arena of the Contest, like everything else on this list, and it's a great game, and that's it. And that is not 10, although it is more than 10 if you've been counting how I cheat. But from there, we're going to go with a twofer. I'm going to move these off camera a bit because I just need the space, and I'm going to put numbers 9 and 10 together because this is going to be Cthulhu Death May Die, and if you've watched my stuff before, you know this, Zombicide Black Plague. These two are going to be the last two, or semi-last two, I'm going to cheat again, semi-last 2 games that I bring to the table of this cooperative games. And the reason I'm doing them both together is because I can never pick which one I like more. I constantly and frequently go back and forth on which of these games delivers a better experience. Zombicide Black Plague, in all its goodness, is going to give you zombie mayhem, where you are trying to basically control a team of 6 heroes against or 6 survivors against the invading hordes of zombies. And you are slowly but surely going to be overwhelmed as the game slowly escalates its tension and starts taking you on. The game will start off easy, and then progressively get harder and harder as you find it almost impossible to survive. But if you can make it long enough, if you can last long enough, your heroes will eventually become powerful enough that you can start pushing back the tide and defeating all the zombies, ultimately achieving your objective, whatever it might be, depending on the scenarios. Each hero is going to come to the table with, multiple abilities or whatnot. And as far as expansions or whatnot, in terms of what I recommend the base game. I recommend the Wolfsburg expansion. Those wolves are amazingly terrifying as they jump onto the board, 3 actions at a time, taking you out. I recommend the Deadeye Archers. Those people, again, line of sight, are going to shoot your heroes, making the game intensely more difficult, intensely more of a puzzle to solve, which is ultimately the fun of the game. And then finally just mix it up with like a hero pack or an abomination pack, something to mix up the various big bads and of course your heroes to bring more variety to the table. From there, you're going to have Cthulhu Death May Die, which hopefully that box is right there. Cthulhu Death May Die is going to give you a very similar feel of a game while being intensely different. This is going to be, the objectives in this game are going to matter far more. It's going to feel more like the objectives or the scenarios you're playing are actually different as opposed to just a different map with a marginally different objective to go through. So the scenarios here, I love. They're far more impactful. They have this interplay of drawing different cards that will affect different things in the order you draw these cards, and you do different discoveries, and you're going to have to take out the monsters. Just I like the monsters of Black Plague a bit more, but I love the Elder One fights in Cthulhu Death May Die, because ultimately the goal is to punch Cthulhu in the face. And so whichever Elder God you're facing off against, you can combine a scenario and an Elder God in different ways that will vastly change your experience every single time. Currently, I think I have like 5 Elder ones and then like 20 plus scenarios, and the combinations will allow you to have totally different experiences every single time, and it's amazingly fun. But my favorite thing about Cthulhu Death May Die, where Cthulhu Death May Die stands head and shoulders above the rest, is that insanity mechanic that you can slowly level up your character, getting more powerful, getting more abilities, more stuff you can do that really feels powerful. I mean, the upgrading here is so much fun. But upgrade yourself a bit too much and you will go insane and die. And then your remaining survivors are left trying to figure out, well, not survivors, but remaining investigators are trying to figure out how to solve the puzzle on their own with, well, fewer people alive left to do it. And it is so amazingly fun, and I love the climax of this game. I love how every game is a rising crescendo of different things, rising to a point, to a peak, in which the Elder One is so ridiculously powerful that you can't possibly defeat him. But your heroes are now so ridiculously powerful that of course you'll defeat him. That rising crescendo of power makes every game hit a tense finish every single time. I love Cthulhu Death May Die, and I really, really need to play it again. It has been far, far too long. And far too long, by the way, just means like, I don't know, 4 months, but that is far too long for this game right here. And then lastly on this list, because I like to cheat and I like to bring things in, we have Too Many Bones. Well, I'm just bringing Undertow because if I try to pick up my trove chest, I'd hurt myself. But Too Many Bones, the reason it is coming in as a voluntary number 11, a bit of an extra to this magical list of games that is definitely not a top 10 list anymore, is because I haven't actually played this one. I haven't played a full game cooperatively. I have played this one solo, and it works well 2-player. It is, I think, rated best with 2 players, in fact. But I've only played half a game at 2 players because we got interrupted and never had a chance to finish it. So I don't know if I can actually properly include it on a list of top 10 cooperative games. But I can tell you that if I have played this cooperatively, and if it did live up to a promise that I think it would, this is one of my favorite games. As a solo game, it is incredibly, and it's an incredible experience every single time. Well, if it had been one that I played cooperatively, I would have had to figure out what to kick off this list, and I'm not answering that question here because I don't know. I had a hard enough time getting it down to 14 on a top 10 list, so forget that. Until next time. Well, not until next time. I do this thing where I say until next time at the end of the video because I'm ready to move to the end, but I haven't fully developed my thoughts at the end of the video because I don't really do notes on these. I don't really have thumb cards, index cards, or who knows what. I really just have a list of games that I want to talk about and why I want to talk about it. If I had to pick 10 cooperative games for you to start your collection, this list over here would not be it. There'd be a great deal of overlap in this list. There are a lot of games here that I think are incredible cooperative experiences to dive into. But honestly, to begin with, I'd try Forbidden Desert, Pandemic. There are a lot of basic cooperative games. Maybe The Crew, Codenames Duet. Trogdor is definitely whimsical. I do love this one. There would be a good deal of overlap here of what I think would make a great cooperative addition to anyone's collection, but not necessarily a top 10 starter list. In any case, this is my top 14 cooperative games, and it's been fun. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.